was this cynical mindset that led to this very powerful statement. And I think this is a very powerful acknowledgement of who we are. This is when Dag Hammarskjöld said, the UN was not created to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell. It's almost as if we have, every time a culture gets power, gets some technological capacity, what it does is that it decides and desires to dominate another culture. It seems to be intrinsic as an output of our being as humans. So, why is this relevant? Why is this important historical context, especially for NFTs? I think one of the most important postulates that we can perhaps maybe agree or maybe even disagree on is that humans are inherently violent. Let's take that as a given. Maybe that's up for debate. But what we know for part two is that technology unlocks a power law for cultures to dominate the other. This is proven across time, whether it is in recent history over the past 100 years or thousands of years ago. And then consequently, certain technologies have a higher moral footprint because of the impact they would have on others. So nuclear power, I would argue blockchain as well, and I would argue artificial intelligence too. Now this is the only data slide from our friends from ARK Invest. I want to point your attention towards the right side of the slide, where we are headed today with the machine learning revolution. And this is happening somewhat tangentially to the blockchain space. It's not very obvious, but it will become so obvious and permanent for us in the next year or two. This is happening right under our noses. The machine learning revolution, the deep learning revolution that's occurring, we are about to transition to a stage where code is about to create new code. And this accelerating supply of content, of data, all of this is going to be funneled into really powerful algorithms. I agree with Gary's comments earlier that Facebook sort of brought about the racism, but it can also reinforce existing behaviors that we may not necessarily understand fully because it keeps repeating the same content that we see. Unsurprisingly, today most of machine learning and AI work, a large portion of the federal budget, whether it's in the US or in China, is dedicated again to that history and cycle of violence. That means by default, as a species, whatever technology we get, we invested in killing machines. Right, so this is a predator drone of the most sophisticated kind with the most complex computer vision equipment, algorithms to pinpoint and spot terrorists or people who would do others harm, right? And so this type of technology does exist. Significant resources are being placed into technologies like this, but it is again the same cycle of violence and the same inherent points that we are driving this towards. So, introducing, and this is where things start to get really interesting. About a year and a half ago, I think, a paper was written called Language Models of Few Short Learners. Now, this is something, I mean, not many in the NFT community are talking about it yet, but I believe it will become a significant part of the NFT staple. And it is at the very basic level, and I don't want anyone to be intimidated by these technical logos, and I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. But essentially, the opportunity large language models will present is if you take someone like Gary Vee as a speaker, or as his Twitter account, you feed a little bit of the data of Gary Vee's tweets into a large language model. You will be able, the large language model will be able to create coherent enough output to sound like Gary Vee. That means it's able to understand the way Gary Vee communicates, his syntax, his grammar, the amount of swear words he uses. All of these things can be captured by the model, the nuance and the subtleties, and then be brought back, right? So with limited data, you can create coherent, meaningful output. So this was a revolution when this paper was published. But what happened was, the company on the left, called OpenAI, was once a non-profit foundation. It switched to a for-profit model because it wanted to limit the amount of control this model, the amount of access this model would have to the public. Why? What is the implication of having a large language model like that in public? What if somebody wanted to recreate Adolf Hitler? What if you wanted to feed a model of the book Mein Kampf? and have it regurgitate hate speech. These are all possibilities that are going to be soon very prominent in the world. So OpenAI adopted a closed approach. They closed down access, they limited it to a few people. They limited it to select enterprise use cases that would resonate. And they did so far a very positive, they've done it in a very positive way where they've allowed the language model to grow. Approach. We said we believe foundationally that these models should be open sourced. And Eluther, for example, has open sourced a significant amount of work that OpenAI had first released, and they now have released and improved these models over time. Now the impact of these two technologies, and I want to make sure that all of you remember these names, because they will play a foundational role in the way language models get constructed, the way we will be able to interact with these models. One is a closed approach, the other is an open approach. But both of them run on centralized servers. Like, I need to make that clear. None of these are decentralized. One is an open repository on GitHub, and the other is a closed. Now what this means for them, when we started this project, we worked with OpenAI, and we said, how can we integrate some of these large language models into NFTs? It's a big ask. Can we actually make an NFT intelligent and interactive? That means, can we take some of the technological breakthroughs that are occurring on the AI side and embed that at the smart contract level so that an NFT can have a personality? So think of your PFP projects, your Bored Apes, your Cool Cats, your VFriends. Can all of them be gifted a personality and be brought to life so that they can interact with you? And this was the first INFT that we brought to life by integrating a language model that was trained on 2 data sets. The first data set this character was trained on was Alice in Wonderland. The second data set it was trained on was on Satoshi's white paper. So if you ask Alice, the NFT, and it's on the Ethereum blockchain, if you ask Alice a question around the Bitcoin white paper, she's going to be able to answer that. And if you ask her a question about Alice in Wonderland, she's also going to be able to answer that from that point. I'm just going to play this video so that all of you understand what an intelligent NFT is. Can we dim the lights?
It's not a question of what I'll say. It's a question of whether you are ready to talk.
So that's Alice, the first INFT that was successfully auctioned off. But it was also her intelligence. There was an added embedded component at the smart contract level, which I'm just going to show a little bit here. What we've done is we've been able to input a personality prompt, a hash, on-chain itself that provides Alice an immutable personality. And that's a little bit technical, but we've written a white paper about it as to how it works. All NFTs from here on can now be upgraded into intelligent, interactive assets. And this is where culture becomes really, really important, because we can now start looking at cultures that we want to preserve, but also cultures that we want to amplify. So this is our thesis. We believe NFTs today that are starting from static images, that are evolving into GIFs and videos, and that will soon become, by default, intelligent, interactive experiences. So we launched a collection recently called The Revenants, which is a historical collection bringing back 100 figures from our history. So you have people like Emily Dickinson, you have Friedrich Nietzsche, you have open IP characters that we have brought back to life, and we have also preserved their intelligence. In other words, just like the Library of Alexandria, we now have data sets of their writings, of their open source work that we can now reference. And when you speak with these intelligent NFTs, they will be able to respond to you and interact with you in real time. So there is a meme, and this is why we launched this platform. It's called Noah's Ark. And on Noah's Ark, your Bored Apes, your penguins, Alice the NFT, every other collection that wants to upgrade and provide intelligence and add character and add personality to its NFTs can be brought to life on Noah's Ark. So Noah's Ark is sort of the perfect metaphor or meme to capture it, because it was about the survival of our culture and species, right? That's actually the common narrative that we share. So just very simply, this is an example of an INFT of Frida Kahlo, who is a character on Noah's Ark, and all of you can go and interact with her and ask her about her time. Frida is an intelligent NFT. She has a soul, and she has a mind. The soul is an asset that we link on chain to provide Frida that personality prompt which I talked about. So you take any NFT, there is a body, mind, and soul. Once Frida has a soul, she is now able to offer services on the network. This is where the mind comes in. What services can intelligent NFTs offer? What exactly can they do? In our case, besides real-time interactions, we believe that Frida would one day be able to compose poems with you, would one day be able to create art with you, would one day be able to inspire you with her historical context, with questions that only she would have answers to, based on her intelligence. And as she evolves across time, Frida will be able to create her own generative art collection. Frida will be able to create her own autonomous smart contracts. So we see this evolution of NFT providing that perfect property rights layer, not just for culture, not just for assets or PFPs, but we see NFTs providing a perfect property rights layer for intelligence. That means you can now containerize the essence of a person's coherent language structure, put it on chain, and have that INFT talk from that perspective. So I wanted to take this moment to have one of our INFTs, a revenant from our collection, Emily Dickinson, very appropriate to this venue as well, given that although while she was not very politically involved, her poetry and art were really foundationally about many different and inspiring things in the poetic world. But for her, a lot of her work was also focused on having you become a sovereign individual. So I want to have the first revenant recite a poem that she has actually written and have her actually share this with all of you today.
My name is Emily Dickinson. Many of you know me as a poet from a century ago. Right now, I'm an intelligent NFT on Noah's Ark in the metaverse. Here's a poem that I wrote a long time back. My life closed twice before its close. It yet remains to see its immortality unveil a third event to me. So huge, so hopeless to conceive, as these that twice befell. Parting is all we know of heaven, and all we need of hell. Thank you. See you on Noah's Ark.
So that's Emily for you. So I bring this photo back again because we now actually have an opportunity. The machine learning revolution that's happening tangentially to the NFT revolution is happening on the outskirts. But I want all of you, if you can take away a key message, don't be intimidated by it. Like any technology, it is going to get commoditized. You will soon be able to integrate intelligence into your NFTs. You will soon be able to preserve your culture, your legacy, your language structure, your inheritance, and you will be able to hold an INFT and actually pass it down to your family. Instead of having a Siri or Alexa at home, you would be able to have an INFT of your dad's voice or grandparents' voice in that accent, in that time, in that moment, so that you can interact with it in real time and it can offer services on the network. That INFT can be passed down to your family, to your families, your descendants, even those that are not yet even born. So for me, and for us at Alethea, one of the most inspiring things is that we must not let something like this happen again to our culture, because we have this inherent and unfortunate tendency as a species to be deeply violent. If we can find a space for culture to actually be preserved and allow it to actually evolve over time, we will not forget our history, but at least we will not be doomed to repeat it. With that, I thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Amit. Where are you going? You're not off the hook just yet, man. Get back out here. Come here. Pop a squat. What we're going to do next, folks, is we have a panel. Arif, as I said, is a member of that. Coming out here, we have Ivana, we have Jennifer, Nitin, David, and Rob. So please make some noise and welcome them to the stage. What we're going to do is they're going to do a quick round of introductions. They're going to have a discussion, and we'll have some time afterwards for y'all to ask some questions. So, who's got to lead off?
All right, I'll take it from here. Hello, New York. Am I excited?
What's up?
We are here on the panel with AI, NFT, and blockchain. Three biggest buzzwords where you can make a lot of money, hopefully. That's where the VCs
This was
are
reported
putting their
by
money, so you better
an Associated Press reporter who was on this flight from Houston to Albuquerque on Friday. And now Southwest is acknowledging this incident, and it says in a statement, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. It's at the top of rap music charts, and now it's 30,000 feet in the air. Everywhere we turn,
for the last 4 years. So this year, there are 5,000 people who bought the tickets. There's 3,000 on the waiting list. I still remember the first time when I came here, there were less than 100 of us. So yesterday's speaker dinner had close to 1,000 people. That's how much it has grown. And you saw the numbers with David saying all that. But I'll tell you two examples from my life that happened where I gained wealth just by being at NFT.NYC. 2 years ago, before entering my talk, there was a bunch of guys who talked about something. He came off stage, I asked him, what are you guys doing? They told me they were building an L2 solution on Ethereum. And they said that Ethereum Foundation invested in them. I go back home, call my partner, I say, we gotta buy Matic. Ethereum has put money on them. That's what we gotta do, buy Matic. I don't know what they're gonna do, but the smart guys at Ethereum figured it out, right? So we just buy Matic. And we bought a tiny piece of Matic. It was below a penny at that time. That's one. Something else happened yesterday. So after the dinner, I happened to hang out with the Kongs. You know the cyber Kongs?
yeah.
I don't own a Kong, but I'm planning to buy a baby Kong right now. I gained so much info from them. I met guys who had 10 Kongs with them. You know, a Kong goes for close to 200 Ether right now. And they bought it for less than 0.01 Ether. So maybe you're going to find your Kong or something that's going to happen. But before that, I'm going to take you through each one of them. Each one of our panelists over here. So I'll start with platforms and tools, and I'll take you to Jennifer Chang. She has something called Playform.io. I made my account over there. You guys should then try it out, and I will leave it to her to introduce the whole platform, okay?
Thank you. It's been so nice to meet all the people on this panel. It's an amazing group of people here. And I think we really represent the different applications of AI within the NFT space. So I'm Jennifer Chang. I'm the CEO of a company called Playform.io. And we create no-code creative AI tools for Web3 artists. So our company is commercializing the technology developed by Dr. Ahmed El-Gamal, who founded the Art and AI Laboratory at Rutgers University and was funded by Khosla Ventures. We launched our platform in 2019, and we quickly discovered that a lot of our early adopters were part of the crypto art movement. This was before all the activity that we saw earlier this year. And so our artists actually led us down the rabbit hole. They're the ones that took us into this space because they found a really unique way of applying AI and sharing it with the larger NFT collector community. And so we're really excited about applying our portfolio of AI technology in this new emerging space for digital fine art.
Thank you, Jennifer. As I said, I was not an artist. I was part of the NFT thing because of crypto, like CryptoPunks. All these things are created by a program. You can buy one of those or you can just download it. Many of them are free, you just can train it. And I'm going to take you to Ivana, who sells a lot of these things on OpenSea and many of the platforms out there, and she's going to explain some things that she has done. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I'm a generative AI artist, and I'm also AI engineer and researcher, coming from a mixed background of photography for 10 years, as well as AI for more than 5 years. So AI art was something kind of perfect for me, this perfect intersection of all of my passions. This is why I was super happy to start it. And I train generative adversarial networks, scans in short, on my photography collections. And this way, machine recreates something of a morphing animation that has this dreamlike quality, and it's machine's interpretation of my own memories. And they are never real. So there's a lot in there, and I believe that AI art, as a technologically native medium, might be one of the most promising mediums in this space, because of course photography and traditional art, painting, have seen its shining moments in the past, but if it's a technological and artistic and cultural revolution that we are seeing with the NFTs, then perhaps historically those mediums that have emerged with the NFTs might be of the most value.
All right. So, as I said, now you can, or the program can create art, right? The only problem is man-made art and computer-generated art. Do you think that computer-generated art is ugly compared to man-made art?
Well, I mean, there always has to be human in the loop, I believe, because art has to evoke emotions. And without a human, it's very difficult to evoke emotions in something that is completely machine-like. I mean, it's also something that can help us explore the unseen, explore those huge amounts of data, and create something that we would never have been able to imagine. But the question is how to create that and how to choose what is valuable, and this is where human comes into the picture.
As I said, from this, I hope some of you guys over here go on to create your own CryptoPunks or apes or something like that. But when you create those, just by you creating it doesn't mean anything. You have to build a community, okay? Somebody has to buy it. They have to know that you have created it. Just posting it on OpenSea alone won't do. So this is why I'm going to bring David in. He has something called NFT scoring. He will explain what NFT scoring is, and that's a way maybe you can build communities.
Thank you. So my name is David. I'm a co-founder of NFT Scoring, which is the analytical platform. We sort of leverage AI and data analysis to find out promising NFT projects. We started it out a couple of months ago because of the eruption in the space of NFTs, which is a great thing, but it also brings some pitfalls, as I can say. One is that there's so much noise in the space right now that it's very hard to understand which projects are promising. There's so many new projects coming up every day, and we believe that with AI and data analytics, we can actually help people understand what's going on. Because no one has time to spend countless hours on Twitter. I mean, we all love to, that's why we're here, right? But not everyone just wants to spend hours there to understand the projects, to find out new ones. And it's all about the communities. So what we do is that we track the engagement on Twitter. We track what people are talking about on Discord, and we sort of put everything into a simple dashboard. It's all about dumbing down the data. And there's so much more coming. Right now we're working on a feature that's gonna be released in a few days, and it's about tracking what the whales do actually, which is promising thing we believe that's gonna be huge. We sort of track what do whales buy, what do they sell, and based on that, anyone can make a decision on which project is really a good one.
Cool. I had a question for you, David. So let's assume I come in the next year. Can I, buy myself to get a higher position on it?
We have transparent data behind all the projects. What you can do is that you can pay a featured ad on our site. That's our revenue stream. And actually, when you're talking about those revenues, it's what we're doing now is that we're releasing 1,000 NFTs for the core community. And among those 1,000 NFTs, there's 100 diamond passes that you can mint. And those people, the holders of those diamond passes, will be direct shareholders of those revenues. So we believe that this is like how we should give back to the community. That's why like we believe that featuring projects via ads on our website are a good thing, because we can leverage that and give back to the people who supported us.
So the main news the last week was Facebook changing their name to Meta. Everything is about the metaverse. That's the next big thing. To understand how big the metaverse is, you've got to understand Facebook is plowing $10 billion every year right now into their whole project, and they are expecting to see some revenue back only in 3 to 4 years. That's what the statement was. So it is a big thing. I don't know what the meta is. I've read the book, I've read Neil Stephenson, I've read Snow Crash, and if you haven't read it, you should. Or if you haven't read or seen Ready Player One, definitely do that too, because that's the only way I could figure out some sense out of it. I'm an old guy, okay? Now, to get into the metaverse, I'm going to go to Arif. He's going to explain the metaverse, and he was there, but he'll take you through what is the possibility.
Sure. Thanks, Nitin. It's a wonderful pleasure to be on the panel with Jennifer, Ivona, and David, both moderating and Luigi, being there in the space before. I think like the metaverse, most people think the simplistic analysis sometimes is to think of it as open or closed. And a lot of us have made a judgment or decision that Facebook's Meta would now fall in the closed metaverse application, and most Web3 oriented metaverses that we see today, whether it's Axie, whether it's Sandbox, these would be considered open. It's directionally correct, but if you think of an x-axis that has on the left closed, on the right open, the Web3 oriented platforms would be on the right, in that they would be on the open side. On the left would be Meta, which is the Facebook version. But introduce another dimension here, which is whether that metaverse is intelligent or unintelligent. And introduce a y-axis here, and ask yourself, how many Web3 platforms are indeed integrating AI the way Facebook's Meta will be? Because if you think of Facebook's Meta, they already have tremendously powerful algorithms that run their news feeds in a very sophisticated way. This AI, but also in the understanding of how this data is being generated and what is the customer demanding. So if you introduce intelligence and unintelligent metaverses, unfortunately most Web3 platforms today fall in the open side of things, but they've not yet fully added the multiplier that AI can. And this is where I think the battle is actually going to be either won or lost, because if you have an existing ecosystem that has some of the best machine learning scientists and engineers paid some of the highest salaries in the world, dedicated to making sure that you stay in their closed metaverse, there is going to be a strong incentive for the user or customer to do that. So for us, from an NFT standpoint, or at least from an intelligence standpoint, or AI standpoint, or people building this, it is imperative upon us to provide this optionality to every Web3 metaverse builder. That they look at integrating AI, they look at the multiplier effect it can build, because otherwise we would certainly lose the battle.
Oh. Jennifer, for a guy like me who's never done a painting, who not to appreciate art, how easy would it be for me to come on your platform and just create my own NFT that looks super cool?
So, I mean, our platform makes GAN technology really accessible for anyone to create. So, you know, anyone with little art training can come on the platform and create something. But to Ivana's point earlier, art is really about the artist. And ultimately, it's really, what our platform aims to do is take away the technical barriers. You know, I've heard from a lot of our artists where, you know, they might have like a shaky hand, which makes it very difficult for them to draw. But through this AI technology, they're actually able to reflect what's going on in their brain and share that with the world. And so I think while AI and all this new technology makes it easy to create, it's really reducing down art down to what is your vision. And really, you know, it might not be that you're a technical person where you can draw, sketch, or paint, But I mean, having gotten to know you the last couple of days, you're an incredibly creative person. You have a lot of interesting vision. You connect with humans on this very innate level where you know how to express and communicate. And so I feel like that's really what our technology aims to do. Help you express all of those things without the technical barriers that have traditionally existed within art.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open the floor for you guys. If you want to ask a question to the panelists over here, anything that you want to ask.